Back. So we've got quite a lot to get through today. So I'm going to be moving a little bit faster and I'll answer questions after a couple of poses. To start off today, we're going to begin with sun salutations. So you will all WhatsApp that little video on your group. So that is the version that you'll be doing in your Asana review, your demo exam, your practical exam. So you can see there's a kneeling chaturanga there and a little baby cobra and pushing back into downward dog. Okay, so I'm just going to cover the basics of sun salutations quickly this morning, just so you can start applying them in your practices now. We'll also be breaking down each one of those poses as we go along. So chaturanga, the cobra, plank, down dog, all of that we'll discuss in more detail, but just so that you have the overall flow of how it goes. So you may have noticed in the class this morning, we didn't do chaturanga or baby cobra because it wasn't relevant for the sequence that we were doing today. So for arm balance, like we did, if we did loads of chaturangas, all I would have done is made your arms tired before moving into an arm balance. So especially for beginners, that's not really helpful. Whereas yesterday when we did the back bend sequence, we went through a little baby chaturanga and cobra to help warm us up for the back bends. So it just really depends whether it's in your sequence or not. It's also totally fine to just do plank and downward dog like we did today, especially when teaching beginners. So I will show you 3 versions of sun salutations. You'll only need to demonstrate the second one in your asana review. So firstly, I call this one your basic beginner sun salutation, especially if you're teaching someone yoga for the first time. You maybe wouldn't want to overwhelm them with chaturanga, especially because we need to be able to hold a good plank before going into chaturanga. Otherwise, we tend to drop into the shoulders, and you can cause a little bit of shoulder niggles with too many chaturangas and not being strong enough. So first sun salutation option, like we did in the class today, standing in Tadasana, feet together, arms up, high mountain, and forward fold Uttanasana. So option here always to bend the knees, and we want to relax the neck here in our forward fold. Fingers in line with toes. I just say that because when you step back, you can just ground your hands, and step forward, your feet are always between your hands. So it's kind of good habit to get into. Hands to shins, halfway lift. So we can really press the chest forwards and lengthen the spine in this halfway lift. And then we ground our hands and step back into plank. So in your plank, we want to make sure that your fingers are spreading and that you haven't turned your hands inwards. You want that pointer finger pointing to the front unless we specify otherwise with you. So in your plank, shoulders stacking over wrists, and push your thighs away from the floor. It just stops you from collapsing in your plank. And as I was saying in the class today, really use this transition to really push, 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 and exaggerate the work in your arms to build more strength in your shoulders and arms as you go from plank to downward dog. And as we've chatted about before, keeping your plank and your downward dog the same distance, so no need to walk your feet in. In downward dog, if you find that your hamstrings are a little bit tight, your options are to bend the knees. It's more important to lift the hips in downward dog, even if that means bending the knees. Same as if you find your hips drop, if you put your heels on the floor, rather keep your heels up and lift the hips. That's always most important, is the hips in down dog. To come forward, you can either do a little walk to the top of the mat, or a big step or jump between your hands. Again, the feet land between the hands, so good habit to just get used to doing your forward folds here. Hands to shins, we press chest forwards and lengthen the spine. And then forward fold, fingers in line with toes, relax the head, option to bend the knees. And coming up with a straight back, we reach up and arms down into Tadasana. So that's our beginner version of a sun salutation without any chaturanga or baby cobra. Cool, happy with that? I'm going to show you the one that you received a video of today and the one you'll be assessed on in your demonstration review later on in this course. Okay. So starting in Tadasana, arms up, high mountain, forward folding, Uttanasana, head is relaxed, fingers in line with toes, halfway lift, hands on shins to really press the chest forwards. Hands come to the ground, we move back into plank, holding in our plank, checking in with hands. Then we bring the knees to the mat. So here we're in a kneeling plank version. You want to check that your bum isn't sticking up or that your pelvis is sinking too low. This kneeling plank should feel quite active. So it's always trying to think of a straight line between my shoulders, hips, and knees. One straight diagonal line. When you lower, I said it to you guys yesterday, you want to think of moving forwards. If I move forwards, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards my fingers, squeeze my elbows into the sides, keep the chest open, look forwards, and try and lower the body down as a unit, as one. If you don't go forwards here, you end up, so if I'm going straight up, my hips are going to lift. So you see this a lot in yoga classes, and it's my pet peeve because it ends up really making you drop forward in your shoulders like this. And over time, because in a lot of vinyasa classes, they might do loads of chaturangas, and if you're doing every chaturanga with your shoulder in an incorrect position, it's going to get sore. Okay, so just to recap that. From your plank, lower knees straight down. Look forwards, think of leaning forwards and moving forwards. Elbows bend. As you bend, squeeze your elbows into the sides of the ribs. Open your chest and your collarbones. We want to try and work for like a 10-second lower here. So really building that strength in your chaturanga. Look forwards, move forwards. Your body should come down as one without your bum in the air. Then we point the toes straight back and curl into a gentle little cobra pose. A nice instruction in cobra is to think of pulling your hands back. Not that your hands are actually moving, but that you're pulling your hands back to bring your shoulder blades together. Don't scrunch your neck. Neck in line with spine is the golden rule. Pull the hands back to lift the chest. Slow lower. And then you can almost think of doing a reverse kneeling chaturanga. So with strong arms, push back to kneeling. Tuck toes and slowly into downward dog. And then you have the option to walk, step, or jump between your hands. Halfway lift and forward fold. Rising to standing, high mountain, and back to Tadasana, mountain pose. Okay, so that's the version you need to concentrate on, and slowly start to work that plank into kneeling chaturanga, moving forwards, squeezing elbows into the sides, and trying to keep your chest open. So what we don't want in that chaturanga is your shoulders to come forwards like this. You're trying to keep that opening in the chest and the external rotation of your arms. So even as you're just sitting here now, bring your elbows into your sides like chaturanga, fingers up to the ceiling. What we don't want is shoulders rolling forwards. And this is why it's so useful to video yourself because it's very revealing what's going on. You want to try and keep your chest open. So your shoulder blades are actually coming together in your chaturanga. Elbows are into your sides, not rolling forwards. Okay. And we will discuss that loads more when we break it down with our arm balances and our pose breakdown. But for now, start to think about that and move forwards, forwards, forwards. Okay, I'm going to just demonstrate the advanced version for you. It's not important for teaching or your reviews, but it might be something you want to work towards later on. And I'll discuss it more when we do the upward dog and full chaturangas. But just so you know, full version would be arms up, maybe with a little back bend. Forward folding, Uttanasana. Maybe if hamstrings were happy to, you could keep fingers on the floor now, which some of you probably also already found to do. Hands ground, step or jump back plank. Look forwards. Full chaturanga, not that you have to worry about it now, but it's all about going forwards. So you can see I've gone onto the tops of my toes, lowering through chaturanga to hover, and then I've gone a whole foot distance forwards, and that's why my toes have flipped in upward facing dog. So I've gone from here to here because I've moved so far forwards in chaturanga and even more for upward dog. And then I roll back over the toes for downward facing dog. Okay. Option 2, walk, step with jump to hands, halfway left, forward fold, and back up to standing. Okay. So I always laugh in yoga classes where everyone kind of tucks their feet for up dog and then tucks them back. The idea is that you move forwards, not that you need to worry about that now. Okay, so any questions on that second version of sun salutation, the one you were sent a video of, and the one you're going to focus on, the kneeling chaturanga into a baby cobra? Cool. Okay, so if you're all happy with that sun salutation, study that video you were sent. And Kasia, you have a question.
My question is just in some of the classes that I've been to, they talk about your elbows, you know. A lot of people, when they go down, their elbows like that. And we've been always taught to make sure the inside faces inwards to make it stronger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to elbows, a lot of us have very different elbows. So some have hyperextended elbows, some have carrying angle elbows. So it's quite a hard instruction to give, generally speaking. What I think the idea behind that is to get an external rotation in your arm. So in that chaturanga, as I was saying, don't let your shoulders roll inwards like this. Better to have that sense of outwards rotation in the upper arms. And that's the feeling we want in a plank, in downward dog, but depending on each person. And as we lower chaturanga, keeping that position and elbows coming in. Did that answer your question?
Sort of. Just that they were saying to not flex your elbows, rotate them outwards to keep them facing inwards. You know what I mean? The inside of your elbow facing in.
I think it would depend on the person. Because like for me, if I turn my elbows in, it makes my shoulders roll inwards. Okay. So it's a tricky one with elbows and arms because they're all different shapes. Fingers pointing forwards, even index finger forwards, will kind of give you that sense of your elbows might face one another, or they might even turn a little bit forwards. And both of those are fine.
Okay.
Is that okay? If everyone had to show their elbows now, you would be amazed how everybody's arms are so different. So we kind of moved away from the instructions of turning elbows forwards or backwards because it really depends on an individual for that instruction. So, and if that works for you, perfect. Okay. Candace?
Yeah, so I was looking through manual and it says the worst chaturanga alternative is the knees test chin.
Yes, yeah. Which unfortunately we see a lot in yoga classes.
Yeah, so there's been quite a few of the classes I've gone to, they've always said knees test chin, knees test chin.
So it causes a lot of injury in the shoulders because you do this. Okay. And unfortunately, it kind of robs you of building the correct strength from your chaturangas so that you can do more advanced arm balances and inversions. So chaturanga can be a great pose to build strength. It's also really hard. And by doing knees, chest, chin, it kind of just, you avoid building any of that strength and actually just creates sore shoulders. So we want to move away from that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, if anyone does that in my class, I normally stop the class and break down chaturanga because it's really important to teach the correct chaturanga. And the kneeling version is great to build that strength in your arms because in yoga we're on our arms and our hands a lot. And especially women, we don't have strong shoulders and arms. So we need to build that strength so we can do cool stuff like crow and one-legged crow and all the fancy arm balances and inversions that we want to do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank
Cool.
you.
Any last questions? Otherwise, I'm going to be moving to your standing balancing poses.
Laura,
Yes.
sorry. Where was the video of the beginners, the sun salutation?
Yes. So this morning in your WhatsApp group, Catherine
in
sent me
WhatsApp.
that video, and it's called the Jason Crandall sun salutation version.
Okay, cool.
That's the
Sorry, I
one
haven't
you can
checked
refer
WhatsApp.
to. Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Alrighty, so now moving on to standing balancing poses. Our first pose is tree pose. In Sanskrit, we call it vrikshasana. But most of us just know it as tree pose. So this is kind of the first standing balance we'll learn and teach beginners. Okay, so for tree pose, let me just angle this a little bit better. Okay. For tree, we want to start with our feet in Tadasana, mountain pose. You have loads of options in trees. So first of all, if balance was an issue, you could have your foot quite close to the ground, so it's there to support you. Or anywhere along this thigh. You often hear a lot about don't have it on your knee. If it hurts your knee, don't do that. But it's not going to break. Okay. Preferably where we want to start to work to get that foot is to grab hold of the right ankle and bring the heel right to the top of the left thigh. Now, a lot of you will say that your foot slips down and doesn't stay there. So tips to keeping your foot against your inner thigh is to actually flex your foot and to feel that you're almost digging your heel into your inner thigh. And at the same time, squeeze your inner thigh to your foot. So the two are really squeezing together here. We're opening up through the right hip. You don't have to turn your hips or force that leg back, just to where it goes. Focusing your eyes for balance is the key. And trying to keep your left big toe on the mat. As soon as that big toe lifts, it really makes it so much harder. Okay. Once you've got your balance by focusing your eyes, your drishti, on a still point in front of you, then we can take both arms up overhead. Just with arms parallel, palms facing one another, reaching up through the sides of the body, and then coming back through center and release. Good. So pretty straightforward. I know a lot of you have done tree pose. The biggest factor we have in this pose is getting that foot to stay up into the inner thigh. So I'll give you a chance to do it in a minute. We're going to really try and feel that flexing of the foot and squeezing your inner thigh to the sole of your foot to keep that contact. I'm going to do one more pose and then we'll do it all together and ask questions. Okay. So if you have any questions on tree pose, just remember it for a moment. Next, I will be teaching you eagle pose, Garudasana. So these are your first two basic standing balancing poses. Okay, so for Garudasana, eagle pose, again, we start in Tadasana, mountain pose, and we want to bend the knees. The more you bend your knees, the easier it is to balance and also to hook your thighs on top of one another. So we'll start by bringing the right leg on top, and I'm really going to bend into my left knee to really sit into those legs. So you can just squeeze thighs together if this is enough for you. It depends on a whole bunch of stuff, whether or not you can curl your toes around your back calf. It's really not important. But if you want, you can curl your toes behind the calf or keep your foot just squeezing towards the side. The idea with the legs here is to try and center your hips and your knees towards the middle of the body, if that doesn't hurt anything. Now, the thing you need to remember here is your arms are opposite to your legs. So if my right leg is on top, my left arm is going to be the one on top. So you might have to make a little mantra for yourself to help you remember. Right leg on top, left arm on top. Or a lot of other people remember it as if my right leg's on top, right arm goes under. So figuring out the two. So to recap, we start with knees bent. Now I'm going to do my left leg, crossing left thigh over right, squeezing thighs together, bringing hips and knees towards the center, facing forwards. Option to curl the toe, but not important. Body is upright because my left leg is on top, my right arm is going to come on top. Or my left arm is going to go under. And wrap palms together. Okay, so the arms here, you want to try and lift your elbows a little bit away from your chest and your hands move slightly away from your face. It's the same arm position we did today in the class, and then sinking deep into those legs. Your gaze is looking on either side of your wrist or your hands, wherever your arms line up. And there's always an option to fold forwards here if you want. In your assessment, we'll just do this pose upright. Trying to bring knees and elbows to the midline of the body. And sitting deep into those legs. And remember, opposite arms to legs, because I will check. Okay, that's your tree pose and eagle pose. Any questions on those two beginners standing balances? Let's give them a go because it's always best to feel first. And then Connie, I'll ask your question, answer your question after that. So let's come up to standing for tree. Okay. In Tadasana, mountain pose, palms facing forwards. Bringing your heel towards the ankle or anywhere along the thigh. Let's try and bring it up all the way. So catching hold of your right ankle. Bring your heel to the top of your left inner thigh. Flex your foot. So dig your heel into your inner thigh. And at the same time, squeeze your inner thigh to your heel. To squeeze and try and make that foot stay there. Otherwise, if it's anywhere low, that's perfectly fine. Bring your hands to the center of your chest. Focus your eyes and find your drishti, your focal point. When you have your balance, slowly take both arms up overhead, hastasana, like cow mountain, and reach up through the sides of your body. Keeping the eyes still for balance. Left big toe stays grounded. Bring hands back to the center of your chest and release. Other side. Left heel comes up to the top of the right thigh. Flex heel to thigh, thigh to heel. So even if you are in slippery pants, try and get those feet to, that foot to stick there. Hands to the center of the chest. Go on squeezing your heel into your thigh and your thigh into your heel. When you find your balance, slowly take your arms up, keeping your eyes focused. And reach up through your fingertips and through the sides of the body. If you were to close your eyes, notice how it's so much harder to balance. So your eyes are everything when it comes to standing balancing poses. It's always a good challenge though. Bring hands back to center of your chest and release. Check out feet because those ankles are working, so really good for the feet. Next we'll do our eagle pose. So let's bend the knees, like Utkatasana. Lift your right leg up, cross right thigh over left thigh. And now here, squeeze thighs together. Maybe you curl your toes around your calf, doesn't matter. Try and center your hips so that they point forwards. If possible, don't hurt anything. Now opposite arms to legs, so check yourself. If your right leg is on top, which arm comes on top? Left. And wrap hands together. In your eagle, sit low into the legs. Lift your elbows up a little higher and move your hands away from your face. Focus your drishti through your hands. Take one more breath and release. Other side, starting with the knees bent. You could always start with your arms first as well. So you don't always have to start with legs. So let's put our right elbow on top of the left. So we already got our eagle arms. So it might make it easier to balance. Then bend your knees. Hook the left thigh over the right. Squeeze knees and thighs together. Try and bring your elbows and your knees towards the center line of your body. Elbows away from your chest, hands away from your face. Can you sink a little lower? Good. And if you wanted to, just for fun, you could always come into a little forward fold here. Slowly release and ground back into Asana, mountain pose. Well done. Questions? Connie.
Hello. So I just have two questions. When I practiced eagle pose before, they say when you put your hands like up like this, then they ask you to usher your shoulders back.
Yes,
like
so
bring
you
your
can
shoulder blades
gently,
together.
absolutely. So with your arms in eagle, you lift your elbows, hands a little away from the face, and then shoulders down a little bit. And it's actually a really nice stretch across your shoulder blades and upper back. So yes, shoulders down a little is a great action.
Okay, and then just the second one, do you have any tips for your balancing foot when you do tree pose or eagle pose, like that one foot that you're balancing on?
Practice, practice, practice. I always say balance is a skill, and the more you work on it, the better it gets. Also, if you have a very thick mat, it makes it harder. And if you're balancing on a thin mat or flat on the floor, it's actually easier. So sometimes it's your mat that can also be throwing you off. But it's a good thing just to bring it into your everyday life, like when you're brushing your teeth, try and stand and balance on one leg. Or when you're boiling the kettle, try and balance on one leg. And you'll be amazed how your balance actually improves over time. And the key is focusing your eyes. So it's really an awesome way to hone in on your drishti so that you use that drishti later on when you want to do handstands and all sorts of other things where it's really vital.
Okay, and also does it help if you spread your toes?
It might. I mean, you're going to see your foot is doing this the whole time. So you can spread your toes and see if that helps, but you're going to be feeling your foot is going to be like micro working and stabilizing the whole time. So try spreading the toes if that works for you, or just whatever's going to help your feet.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Good luck. Aman.
Hi, I have a quite weird question about my hip joint because I have mobility.
It probably pops out a little bit here.
Yes, so it shouldn't pop up, is it? Because I could pop it up. So
so we want to keep those hips intact and don't pop them out, ideally. But yes, so it is a thing in these balances. Because you can see, like me, I also can have the tendency to lean off into this hip. So what you want to try and do, and it's activating one of your glute muscles here actually, which is good stability, is try and lift without sinking into that hip, like if you were standing like this, but actually pull in and up through the hip. And it's actually quite a good strengthening exercise as well. Okay, so no sitting in the hips and popping anything out. Keep your bones in place and pull up through the side bum muscle here. It's called your glute medius. Don't sit into it, but lift out. Okay.
thank you
You've got very mobile
very much.
joints, which makes things difficult. So really important to get strong, strong, strong in all those areas and not push to your max, but try and find the strength in all your poses. So even in tree, I want you to be sweating, that you're pulling in and into yourself and into your joints the whole time. That's how we have to work when you've got too much mobility. You need your muscles to hold you strong in those poses because your ligaments are too loose to.
Yeah.
So we've got to really find the strength in every pose is your mantra. Find the strength in the stretch. Pull into your joints rather than out of your joints. And sweat in all your poses that you're working hard in strengthening.
Yeah, because I have a difficulty about, I don't know which part to strengthen, because like my shoulder, I could push here, I could push here. There's too much option for me to. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm gonna, but
it's difficult, and I'm happy to help you along the way with that as well, because it is tricky. So if you're ever not sure, just let me know, and we'll also be checking in when we do your review next week. And I'll tell you, okay, do less, to find that normal range of movement and to not be pushing into your maximum range. So you're probably always going to have to do a little less. Like when you take your arm up, do a little bit less. When you take your leg out, do a little bit less. And if you feel that you tense your muscles, it'll naturally pull you out of that. And that's what we want to focus on.
Yeah.
Strength, strength, strength.
Thank you.
No pleasure. Ian.
Doing eagle,
Yes.
you should be turning both your palms if to one side. Does that actually make a difference, or can you keep your palms together, or
so normally we bring palms together like this, so we hook elbows and then I'm going to turn, but it also depends on your mobility if that's possible. What we're trying to work towards is having flat hands together, palms facing one another.
Okay, so that's actually preferable over turning them both to one side.
Yes, unless they felt better for your wrists, because this is kind of a different kind of forearm rotation, and if that was a problem in any way, you could adjust and have palms facing one side. Otherwise, palms facing together, whatever's best for you. But we'll just say palms.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. That makes more sense.
Cool. Perfect. Any other questions before we start moving on?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just thinking now, if you're in eagle, then your triceps are meant to be parallel to the floor. So you raise your elbows a little bit, right? So that your forearms are perpendicular to the floor.
That's correct. So in your arms, what we're looking for is your upper arms. So here, your triceps to come parallel to the floor, and then your forearms to become vertical. That's what we're looking for within reason, like if that's possible for your arms and your shoulders.
And then when you go from there into baby eagle, should you keep your arms sort of in the same position as they are, like in relation to your body, or can you just put it in?
You just pull them in. So when you go into that baby eagle and lean forwards, you'll find you're going to round your back a whole lot more, so it won't be as easy to keep that shape. And you can just bring your elbows down and they kind of hook onto the inside of the one knee. So that's totally fine.
And then I have a question, actually. Sorry if it's like not the right time, but it's about Skandasana.
So let's just do questions for that after the session, just because I've got so much to do today. So please just remember that question. And when we're done today, I would love to hear it.
Cool, perfect. Thank you.
I'm just blasting through because I tend to talk too much and then we get a little
totally fine.
Okay, so the next poses that are in your assessment are Warrior 3 and Half Moon Pose and Dances. You will see in your manual there's a few other poses there which are more advanced. We're not going to worry about those today. I'm going to give you the most important poses, and then you can just read through the manual with the standing Padangusthasana when you're holding this foot. All the information is in there for you for later on if you want to work to more advanced poses. I'm going to stick to what's important and what you're going to be assessed on, and we can come back to those poses at any point, and you can ask me any questions if you want to do them. But today, let's move to warrior 3. Okay. So remember the first day we all got together, we did a class for warrior 3. Do you remember what the main actions were for that pose? I said it like 100 times, so you were probably quite bored of hearing it. But we're trying to keep the hips parallel to the mat, so squaring the hips, which means our back leg doesn't go super high. It's going to stay pretty much parallel to the floor as well. Back foot, I like to flex the foot and have your toes pointing down because it's a good indicator that your hips are parallel. Because if your foot is facing out to the side, it means that you've externally rotated that leg and your hips are probably open. Okay, so we're going to keep a look at that back leg. Remember, we did 3 different versions with the arms. So we had hands in prayer, we had aeroplane arms, and the hardest one was with our arms forwards in front of us. And remember why it's always harder when our arms are up and forwards? Is because it's adding extra weight, extra load. So it makes the pose much more intense. Like you felt in Utkatasana chair, when your arms are up, much harder to when your arms are down. Okay, so for warrior 3, we often enter this pose from high lunge. So I'm going to take it from there. You could also just come into it from Tadasana as well. So from your high lunge position, we'll do hands in prayer to start. We want to think of bringing the chest forward. So the chest is coming more parallel towards the mat. Now remember not to drop your shoulders here. It's almost a sensation of like a little baby back bend where you keep your shoulder blades together and chest lifted. I shift my weight into the front leg, which might mean you have to hop in, especially if you have really long legs. It's quite a big step. So you may hop in and then float that leg up. Or you might just lean forward, shift the weight, and lift. Okay. In this pose, you want to imagine that you're still standing on your left foot. So dropping that left hip to try and bring it as parallel to the floor as possible. Squeezing the back leg up. So you're going to feel work through your hamstrings and glutes. Flex the back foot. So here, if my foot is pointing off to the side, I know my hip is open. If I turn my toes down to the floor, I'm forced to square my hips. So see if you can check in like that. After that, I don't mind if your foot is what we call flointed, where you push through the ball of the foot, or even pointed. But the flex really helps you to feel what's happening in your back leg because you can't see it. Okay. So from here, in your warrior 3, you can have aeroplane arms, with the arms reaching back, or arms forwards, which you know is going to be the hardest one. And especially for those with knees that sway back, really check in with your knee in this one. Because when the arms come forwards like that, a lot of you lock back in your knee. So watch that you keep that little micro bend. Can we give it a go? So let's go plank down dog. Stepping the right foot forwards. High lunge pose. Good. From here, let's bring hands to the center of the chest to start. Lean your chest forwards, but don't drop forwards in your upper body. Keep your chest lifted, shoulder blades lightly together. Press your hands against the center of the chest. Focus your eyes for balance. Step forwards or just float into warrior 3 legs. Now, think about your back foot. Turn your toes to point down towards the floor with your foot flexed. Press through your back heel and lift your thigh up, but keep the hips parallel to the mat. Gaze forwards, chest lifted. And then extend your arms back into warrior airplane arms and reach your fingertips back and arms up. And then also try with your arms forwards in front of you. Feel the difference when your arms come forwards, how it intensifies the pose, and check that you don't lock back in your bottom knee. Take a big step back into high lunge. Ground your hands back to downward dog. We'll feel that on the other side. So from downward dog, step your left foot forwards for high lunge. Taking both arms up. Bring hands to heart center. Lean forwards and shift your weight forwards into your front leg. Step in or float into warrior three. Think about your back foot now. Turn your toes to point down to the floor. Square your hips parallel to the mat. Lift that back leg up as high as it can. You'll feel it will stop because your hips are parallel. Arms back through aeroplane. And then arms forwards, full version, reaching through fingers, pressing back through the back heel. And when you're ready, stepping back. And release, back into downward dog. So you don't always have to come from high lunge. You felt when we did that sequence on Monday, we actually did it from Tadasana or single leg Tadasana, and we almost move in like a pendulum action into warrior three, which can also be nice. And you can pendulum forwards and pendulum back. So it just depends who you're teaching. If it's your peak pose, you can enter it in a few different ways just to kind of play and explore it. Okay, that's quite a big pose. So let me know if you have any questions. One more thing I'll say, if you have a wall at home to practice with, this is a very Iyengar way to do it, but if you have a wall to put your foot on, you check that your toes are pointing down on the wall, kind of shuffle, and that your bottom leg is straight down from the hip, pushing into the wall, and then coming up. It's really intense, but it's really quite nice to feel that support for the balance now, and just to really feel how straight your hips are with the assistance of the wall. So quite fun to practice that later on when you're near a wall. Ella, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, if you have tight hamstrings, when you're standing in warrior three, sometimes like it pulls a bit. So what would you suggest if people struggle to straighten their bottom leg?
Great question. Just bend the bottom leg a little bit. I actually advise it for everyone. So if you come into the pose in warrior three, you can keep this leg bent. And I actually think it's awesome for everyone because when that knee is bent, it's easier to square your hips and get everything into place. And then you can just keep it bent or straighten it out a little bit.
Okay.
You just bend the bottom knee a little bit. Sometimes it actually gets a better pose.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a really good one to strengthen and lengthen hamstrings. So it's a goodie to practice for tight hammies. Ian, you have a question?
Yep, I'm probably like the nerd of the group because I keep asking questions.
That's
So I just want to find out. It's obviously when you're in your warrior three, and you're lifting up the leg that's standing. You're going to feel it in your butt, basically in the hip.
So absolutely.
So they shouldn't be concerned about that at all. I mean, it's supposed to engage there, and
absolutely, and because you're squaring off your hips there, it's that same muscle that Amana has to actually work. So it's actually a good one for her too. And it's because you're balancing on one leg. It's a really good hip stabilizer. And you'll actually notice when you do that at the wall as well, that last version I showed you, it really bites into that hip. So it's all good to feel that work in the hip, and also big time in the bottom leg hamstring. And the leg that's kicking up at the back, your bum and your hamstring are also contracting.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, because I've heard some people say in classes that oh, if you're in Warrior 3 and you're feeling it in your butt, you're overextending and so on. So it's just
no, it's a stabilizing muscle. So, and in those poses, your muscles are really working to stabilize, and it makes it harder because your hips are turned parallel. It makes it harder for that hip to work. Whereas if your hips were open, it would actually be easier. And that's why we feel it so much in Warrior 3. All good,
brilliant. That makes sense.
We want to work those muscles. Okay, so that's quite a big pose, so make sure that you practice that and get comfortable as much as possible with Warrior 3. Working to extend that back leg, keep hips as straight as possible, and bottom leg can be a little bit bent or straight. Make sure you're not locking back in that bottom leg. I don't mind any arm version, whatever is best for you. So hands in prayer, airplane arms, or full version, whatever works best for you. And we'll check in with that when we do our review next week. Okie dokie. Our next pose is our dancer's pose. So we did a little bit of this in the back bend class yesterday. This is actually half dances we'll be learning. Full dances is when both hands are back like this holding your foot, which is really quite hard and advanced. So we will be doing the version with just one arm back. Okay. Nicola, your question before I go.
It's a practical question. It's just on page 65 where they've got Warrior 3. There's a schedule of poses, 15 poses to Warrior 3. Yes. Are those recommended poses to use in a sequence if your peak pose was Warrior 3?
Exactly that. So this is a little Jason Crandall thing. You'll see them online. They're very cool. He also does peak pose sequencing like us. So this is just a little picture of different muscles you'll be warming and different same shapes as you'll be creating as your peak pose to move into Warrior 3. Just as our sequence did the other day, you'll see some similar poses there to help build to Warrior 3.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm going to show you your dancer's pose now. So similar actions to Warrior 3 in the standing balancing leg. And we're going to be working a little bit more back bend in the back and working a little bit more hip extension, your back leg, lifting high in our dancer's pose. So Warrior 3 would be a prep for your dancers. We're just going to take it a little further. Okay. So if I'm standing in Tadasana, very important to check your arm is doing the correct thing here, because I see a lot of the time people get confused and then they're holding with their shoulder rolling forwards like this. So if you've got a Tadasana hand with your palm facing out, you keep your arm facing out and you just extend that hand to the back. So make sure you're not twisting your arm and doing anything with it. It's just a Tadasana hand extending back. Then from here, I'm going to bend my knee and catch hold of the inside arch of my foot. So big toe side of the foot. Before I go anywhere, I want to try and kick that foot into my hand and create like a bow shape, like bow that you do lying on the mat. Don't forget, it's about getting this leg up. A lot of the time, everyone gets focused on coming forwards and you lose that awareness of the back leg. So don't forget about that. Holding inside arch of the foot. Kick your foot into your hand to lift the toes up nice and high. Notice here my hips will open up. In Warrior 3, I squared my hips so my leg couldn't go high. In dances, I want my leg to go high, so we allow the hips to open. And you'll see that in poses like standing splits, where if you square your hips, the leg goes down. If you allow your hips to open, you can do a split. So it depends what you want for the pose. If you want a big dances, allow the hips to open. It's normal. Okay. From here, we're going to kick the foot into hand. Once you've got your bow shape, then I work into my hamstring and I lean further forwards. Okay. So this is where your hamstring will start to feel it. And keep your right arm parallel to the mat. Kick toes up at the back. You want to give it a go? So lots of hamstring flexibility in this one, as well as a little back bend. and hip extension, taking your back leg up and back. So feel what I mean about the hips here. If you square your hips, your leg won't go high at the back. If you allow your hips to open, it'll go higher. So let's go. Standing in Tadasana. Turn your palm forwards like you do in Tadasana. And just reach that arm back. Don't do any more than that, or you land up with a twisted shoulder. Okay? Same arm as foot. So bending the knee. Catch hold of the inside arch of the foot. So big toe side of the foot. Extend your free arm up towards the ceiling. And now just lift your toes up and create a bow shape without even worrying about leaning forwards yet. Just lift the thigh as high as possible. Notice if you square your hips, boom, the leg's going to lower. Whereas if you open the hip a little bit, so it doesn't throw you off balance too much, your leg will go higher. From here, look forwards, focus eyes, and then start to lean forwards and kick your toes up. Then you'll start to feel that hamstring of your standing leg. Good. And now to come out of the pose, which is always tricky, squeeze your thighs together to come up and land. Which is always the struggle in dances because we end up reaching out so much. Let's feel that on the other side. So, taking your hand back just like you do in Tadasana. Catch hold of the inside arch of the foot. Other arm extends up. First create the bow. Kick foot into hand. So kick your foot into your hand to make it lift high. And try and lift your toes up to the ceiling. Look forwards. And slowly start to lean forwards. Reach through your front fingertips. And kick back with your toes. So it's kind of like a pull and push feeling. When you're ready to come out of the pose, slowly squeeze thighs together and land back into Tadasana. Good. Well done. Tell me how that feels. Any questions? Can you feel how we want to make the bow shape first? And try and kick your toes up to the ceiling as well as back into your hand. And then we slowly lean it forwards, and that's when you start to work into your hamstring. Okay, Rosalia, you have a question.
So when you said don't square your hips, I mean that's something that I've just always heard. Square your hips.
I know.
And it just sort of made me lose balance like a lot. Like I just couldn't keep the pose very well.
So you need to find a balance of that. As I said, so if you open your hips radically, you're going to fall over. So it's a balance about allowing a little bit of rotation in the hip just to allow your back leg to lift, but not extreme that you're almost forcing it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The reason why I say the hip thing, so if I'm lying on the floor, we're going to talk about leg extension now, so your leg going back. If I keep my hip on the floor, I've only got 30 degrees of leg extension, my leg going up, okay? So that's like warrior 3, right? If I let my hip come off the mat just a little bit, it goes way higher. So it depends what you want from your pose. If I want my back leg to only lift 30 degrees, I keep my hips squared, like warrior 3. And you could do dances like that as well. But then don't expect your leg to go super high. Depends what you want from it. If I want my leg to go really high, the hips naturally have to open a little bit. And it means the back leg actually externally rotates a bit, and then it goes up higher. And the great example of that is standing split. So if I square my hips, that's literally as far as it'll go. If I open my hips, it goes up. Both is totally fine. It's just what you want. So find that balance in your dances.
Thank you.
Cool. Connie Lee.
Could you maybe just demonstrate a soft landing? So how to come out of the pose gracefully.
It's really tricky, I know. Okay, so if I'm in my dancer's pose, and the reason why it's so tricky is because we're leaning so far forwards and kicking so far back. So yeah, I'm going to think of squeezing my inner thighs together to almost suction my thighs together and then release back to Tadasana. It does take practice. And I know that sometimes the hardest part about this pose is getting out of it gracefully. So if you think of just squeezing thighs together and pull back with strength, it may smooth that landing a little bit. Good luck. Bronwyn.
This might just be a personal thing, but often in these positions, in the mermaid as well, if I've got the back leg extended and then I bring the foot up, my hamstring cramps.
Yes, it's because when you bend your knee, so if this was my leg and my knee, your hamstring contracts to bend that leg. So yes, so in this pose, what you want to be thinking of doing is actually the opposite, is kicking your foot away. So it should actually contract your quads on the other side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay.
But yes, the hamstrings are notorious crampers. As soon as you draw your heels next to your bum, they want to cramp. As they get stronger, it should go away, but that is normal. The more you kick away, the more the quads kick into straighten leg, and hamstrings contract to bend the knee. So kick, but is so normal.
Okay, thanks.
And I know it's a bugger. Okay, so that was your standing dancer's pose. That is half dancer's pose. You'll see when you do your advanced teacher training, we talk about full dances where you hold your back foot with both hands, and it's much more of an intense back bend. So just so you know, that's only half.
Laura.
Yes, Fabi.
Sorry. In dances, I don't know how I did it now or do it now, but I remember back in the day when I practiced at a studio with a mirror, I sometimes saw that in this dancer's pose, I tended to struggle to prevent my back leg / knee from going out.
Yes.
So like, it's difficult to keep it perfectly straight, parallel.
Exactly what you mean. So again, it's that thing, if I were to keep my hips straight, it would stay in. If I let my hip open, the leg is going to go out more. So if you want a bigger pose, it's totally fine for your knee to go a little bit out to the side.
Okay.
It's just because we've allowed a little bit of external rotation in the back leg so that it goes higher.
Cool.
Okay, so it's totally fine.
Thank you. And then another teacher once instructed this pose coming from the one leg on the floor and then the opposite, engaging the standing leg, and then the opposite arm, like pulling the elbow into your waist, and then
just different ways, because you'll see when you start teaching this, people do really weird stuff with their arm and then end up holding their foot with this kind of position. So sometimes they say serving a tray and then reaching back. So that's totally cool. As long as your palm's facing out and then you're reaching back, that's what we want. So the shoulders externally rotated and gone back and not done this.
Yeah.
Cool. That's going to be really sore. So that's totally cool. Okay. And then our last standing balance we're going to focus on today, and this is a big one, your half moon pose. So this is Ardha Chandrasana. Okay. So similar to Warrior 3, but we've got external rotation. So we're going to have the shoulders turned towards the side of the mat, and we're externally rotating the bottom leg as in triangle pose. So triangle would be a great prep for half moon pose because they're exactly the same pose, just in half moon, you tipped off to the side. So that's always the awesome thing about yoga, is a lot of the poses are exactly the same. You might do it lying on your back, you might do it standing, you might do it balancing, but your bones are actually all in the same position, the same joint actions, which will make a whole lot more sense soon, don't worry. Okay, so I'm going to show you Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. We often enter it from triangle pose, just because it's exactly the same. So if I'm in triangle here, half moon, pretty much triangle, just balancing on one foot. So they have the exact same leg actions. So if I'm in my triangle, I'm going to advise you just to put your hand on your hip as we go into this, so you're aware that your chest stays pointing towards the side, okay? Because when you're in the pose and then try and open your chest, it often throws you off balance. So little trick, try and get in with your chest open already. Please be aware, a lot of us use a block in this pose. So if you have shorter arms or tighter hamstrings, the block is awesome. So you can always have a block forwards. Okay. So from my triangle, the steps to move into the pose, I'll bend my right knee and take my hand towards the block. Can you see how far forwards that block is? And my block is out to the side, so towards the baby toe side of the foot. Not directly forwards here, but slightly back. The reason for this is it helps you open your chest and lean back. So make a little note of that. The block's just a nice view for you there to see where it is. Here's my foot and my block's out to the side slightly, and that helps a lot. Okay, so coming back into the pose, I bend my right knee, I take my hand out to the side, and I try and keep my chest open already. So it's already there. Okay, then I shift my weight into my standing leg and slide my top leg up. So here, if my hand is in the right place, I can use my fingertips to almost stand on. If my hand is too close like this, it's not going to help you. So the hand position in this pose is vital. Out to the side and forwards, more forwards than you think. So when I'm in the pose, my hand is underneath my shoulder, or even slightly forwards off. Okay, that's one of the most important things here. Another thing I see a lot is the back leg swings back and the chest leans forwards. What you're trying to do here is have your shoulders, hips, and back foot all in a straight line. So again, if you were to do this pose against the wall, I don't know if you can see my wall very well here, but imagine I'm against a wall. I can just stand with my hip against a wall, use my block or my hand, and then against a wall, I can lean my head against the wall and have my foot against the wall to feel that straight line. Also, like I'm kind of doing now, is put your back foot against a wall, so you kind of don't have to worry about balance, and then you can kind of try and feel, are my hips, shoulders, and back foot in one straight line, or am I leaning forwards? Okay, lots to think about with this. Okay. If hamstrings are tight, you may find, again, the bottom leg will be a little bit bent. So this is a big pose. Let's give it a go together. Come up to standing. Let's come from plank down dog. If you have a block and want to use it, go for it. It is really nice in this pose. Step your right foot forwards between your hands. Come up for triangle pose. So back foot slightly turned in, front foot's turned out 90 degrees, moving to your triangle. So your chest is exactly the same here in half moon as it is in your triangle. So this is what it should feel like in the balance. Okay. Place your hand on your hip to remember to keep the shoulder open. Now bend your front knee. Slide your front hand forwards, way forwards, and slightly out to the side, so towards the baby toe side of the foot. Step in a little, because it's quite a big step. Keep your chest open, and then slowly lift the back leg. Good. Keep your chest open and check that you're not leaning forwards with your shoulders. Lean your head back. Lift the back leg up and make sure your back leg hasn't swung behind you, but is still in line with the hip. Good, take a breath here. And then open the top arm up towards the ceiling. Now you're in your full half moon. And take a big step back into triangle. Good. Let's feel that on the other side. I know it's tough. So you can just swivel your feet if you want. Come into your triangle pose. This is how your chest should feel in half moon. So your head is back, chest is open. Bring your hand onto your hip if you want, just to remember to keep that chest open. Bend your front knee. Slide your front hand forwards and out to the side. Reach it as far forward as you can. Step forwards. Make sure your hand is under the shoulder and slightly out towards the baby toe side of the foot. Keep your chest turned to the side. Lift the back leg and make sure that back leg hasn't swung behind you, but is still in line with the hip. Check your shoulders haven't leaned forward. Lean the head back. And when you got your balance, extend your top arm straight up to the ceiling. That's it. Take a breath in. And gently step back to triangle or feet together. Good, well done. There's a lot going on in that pose. So it's going to take a little practice and time to refine. And I recommend doing it leaning your back against a wall. So you would stand with your feet sideways to the wall and then swing your back leg. And it just helps you to have time there that you're not struggling to balance and just kind of think what's going on. Questions? Candice?
I just want to ask you, Drisky in that
Good
pose,
question.
where would that be?
So, first of all, if balance is tricky for you, look at the floor. It's totally fine. Just looking at the floor will be the easiest. And you'll notice as soon as you turn your head to the side, it's going to be harder.
Yeah.
And normally, like even for me, I just keep looking to the side. That's my max. Sometimes people look up, but that's just crazy because it's really, really hard to balance with your head turned up to the ceiling. So first, just looking at the floor, make sure everything is in place. And if you're feeling really solid, then you can look to the side. Okay. The biggest thing I want you guys to feel in this is your hand is going to be a little bit off to the side. That is going to help so much. Aman.
I just want to ask, is it both this and the dancer, the front leg is straight? Front leg, is it straight?
Sorry, your question? I'm just trying to find you in all the little blocks on top of the screen. Yeah. So what is straight? Your head? Or what were you saying?
Front leg. The front leg.
Front leg. Yes. So your aim is to get your front leg straight over time. I also don't mind if your front leg is a little bit bent if hamstring is a restriction, but for you, that's probably not the case. So yes, front leg is straight in this and your dancer's pose and warrior 3 if you can. But it's also fine to have the knee a little bit bent. Just check that you're not locking back in the knee if that's something you might tend to do. Cool. Okay, very big poses those, especially the warrior 3, your dancers and your half moon pose. You'll find you'll need to practice those quite a lot just to get comfortable with them. So make use of the wall. It really helps just to give you a little bit of stability to feel everything that's happening. And then I'll give you individual feedback when we check in next week.
Sorry, Laura.
Hi.
Hi. With half moon, I think my arms are like shorter in relation to my body than my legs. And so when I do half moon, I sort of feel like I can't get my upper body like in the position that it should be.
I know exactly what you mean.
If I touch the floor, so I feel like I need to like lift my hand a little bit, yes. The front hand.
So totally, your first option there would be, like for me as well, because my arms are shorter than my legs. You can see my shoulders are actually below my hips.
Yes, exactly.
Mind, it's all good. But you can have a block in place, which would fix the problem, and that's what a lot of people do. And that's why this pose works so nicely with a block, because then I can have it all. Okay, and cool. If you don't have a block, you can just hover your hand. Of course, it's
Cool,
hard to
perfect.
balance like that because your hands are on the floor, but if that's better for you, that's also totally cool.
Cool, thank you.
Good. Olga.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Hi, Laura. I just want a quick question. It's not squared. It's kind of moving out to the side.
Yes. So your hips in this pose are opening a little bit towards the side, still with natural hip position, but yes, your shoulders and your hips and everything is kind of facing towards the side.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. The hardest thing is to get your chest to turn towards the side there without throwing yourself off balance as you turn it. But that is the big difference between Warrior 3, your chest is facing the floor, and in Half Moon, your chest is facing towards the side. So you want to really feel those two differences in those poses.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, so practice those. I'm going to move on to standing twists. Okay, so in twists, the most important thing you want to think about doing is lengthening your spine and then turning. Okay, so we don't want to twist with a rounded back because it doesn't work, okay? And you also don't want to twist with a very arched back. It's actually going to restrict your range of movement. So we want to lengthen up nice and tall, like we've been feeling in the high mountains and high lunges and all of that, and then rotate through the spine. Okay, so let's start with the ones that are in your assessment, and then I'll go to some of them that aren't quite as important. I'm just going to get your list out that I get it totally right. Okie dokie. So let's start, I'm just doing it in my own order. Let's start with twisted Utkatasana. So Parivrita Utkatasana, revolved chair pose. Because we can discuss a lot of the things that are going on in twists there. Okay. So same as normal chair pose, we're going to bend the knees, sit low, and sit weight back into those feet. From here, bring hands to heart center. I'm going to twist towards the right and then hook my left elbow on my outer right thigh. So here even, like for me, if I want a really good twist, sometimes I use this right hand to help me hook, and then I lean my head back. You'll notice when you hook, you're going to lean your chest forwards in order to do that. And then once you've got the hook, it helps to lean your head back. So now your head has come back in line with your pelvis. And all of the twists, it helps to do this because you're going to hook, and then you're going to need to lengthen your spine and lean the head back to get that full rotation. When you're here, you'll notice that my left knee has come forwards of my right knee. That's normal. Again, you've probably heard in a lot of yoga classes, keep your knees squeezed together, which is also fine, but it reduces your twist. So if you want a big twist, you let your knees move. Just as you're sitting now, hopefully on the floor or even seated on a chair, if you just twist to the right, and then look at your feet, you'll see that your left foot has extended past your right foot. So basically, when we twist, our pelvis moves with us because it's kind of all attached. So in your twist, your hips do move. It's natural. And if you want a big twist, let that happen. If for some reason you wanted knees together and less twist, that would also be fine, but it depends what you're doing it for. Okay, so let your knees slide apart here. Even if you've been told a million times not to, I'm going to tell you it's okay. And then we're going to lean here back, twist, twist, twist. We try to pull our hands down towards the center of the chest. so that you can get this nice straight prayer line and really rotate through the shoulders. So this top shoulder, rotate it back. Lengthen your spine and twist. We'll pass through the center and do that on the other side. So let's come together, standing in Tadasana. Bending the knees, come into Utkatasana chair pose. Bring hands to heart center. Just a heads up, if you're working with any herniated discs or anything intense going on in your spine, be mindful of twists. Don't crank it, okay? Be gentle. I'm watching you. From here, we're going to twist towards the right. Hook your left elbow on your right outer thigh. So notice how you kind of lean forwards to do that, yeah? Once you've got the hook, snuggle. If you're like me, you might need to use hands to really get that elbow hooked. And then lean your head back. Feel when you lean back how you can twist more and open your chest more. That's the key to this twist. Lean back, turn your chest, and then pull your hands down gently towards the center of your chest. Inhale, pass through center, and into the other side, hooking right elbow on outer left thigh. Once you've got your hook, lean your head back. If you look at your knees now, you'll see one knee is forwards of the other knee. It's fine. Notice if you try and bring your knees together, you can't twist as much. We want the twist, so let your knees move. Lean the head back, roll your top shoulder back, slide your hands down, and your gaze can be down or to the side or even up, but don't strain your neck. Come back to center and release. Okay. Could you feel what I mean about allowing your knees, legs are working, allowing your knees to move? It's just natural because your pelvis and your spine move together. So the hips do turn with you in twists. And it gets a better twist, so that's perfect. There's a whole lot of reasons for that, but I won't bore you with the details. You'll learn more about that in your advanced course. Could you feel that when you leaned back, you could twist more? So that's going to be the key to all of these twists. T, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Laura. I just wanted to ask, how long do you advise you hold that twist for, typically? Like how many breaths?
I feel twists are quite intense.
Yeah.
3 breaths is probably fine. In a lot of styles of yoga, they might hold you for 5 breaths. If you were doing like quite a fast-paced vinyasa, I would just say 1 to 2 breaths. It's fine.
Cool. Thank you.
It kind of depends who you're teaching. So if I'm teaching beginners, I'm going to be talking and giving a whole lot more instruction. So probably there for a bit longer, which is harder. If you're teaching advanced people, you might be moving a little bit faster. So it kind of just depends.
All right, got you. Thank you.
I think it takes about, on average, 3 breaths to really settle into it, feel what's going on, do all the actions, and then kind of move. Cool. Olga, do you have a question again, or is your hand just still up from earlier? Cool. Okay, next we will do twisted low lunge and twisted high lunge. Okay, so pretty much exactly the same. I'm just double checking. Cool. So, if we're coming from plank down dog, stepping forwards, bringing arms up, we're going to bring hands to the center of the chest again, twisting towards the right, leaning forwards to hook that elbow on the outer thigh, and then again I'm going to lean back to turn the chest. And of course, the more you twist here, so your hands might be just on one side of your chest, the more you lean back and turn this top shoulder back, the more you can bring hands to the center of the chest. It's not a drama. Don't worry about if your hands are off to one side. That's quite normal. But as you twist deeper, you may be able to bring the hands down a little bit more. Okay. While we're here, I'm going to show you the twisted high lunge because it's exactly the same. So, we did on this leg. So from a high lunge position, hands come to the center of the chest, exactly the same. I twist towards the front leg, hook my elbow. So for me, I like to use my other hand for a bit of support to try and get my shoulder as deeply hooked over my thigh as possible. Okay. Be aware, if you lose your lunge here, you lose your hook. Here, we've learned all the foundations of high lunge and low lunge to try and keep that knee stacked over ankle, and it actually keeps you in that hook. And then we'll be here in our twisted high lunge. Option to open our arms here, but it is quite tough. And in your manual, you'll see a version of this pose called Parivrita Parshvakonasana. It's twisted side angle pose. We're going to modify and do it in a twisted high lunge. The only difference is I'm on the ball of my back foot, because if I were to ground my back heel, it's really tough. And again, we have twisting your knees and a whole lot of drama. So in your assessment, only things you'll have to worry about is your revolved chair pose, twisted low lunge, twisted high lunge. Okay, so let's go through those last two poses now. Plank down dog. Lovely. When you're ready, you can step your right foot forwards. Lower your back knee down and inhale both arms up. Bring hands to the center of your chest. Whilst upright, twist towards your right leg. Lean forwards and hook your upper arm on your outer thigh. If you need to do a little extra shuffle to feel a nice deep hook there, it's sometimes easier, and it depends on the person, if your shoulder is hooked a little bit deeper down the thigh. If that doesn't work for you, hooking the elbow is also just fine. So kind of feel that out. Okay. Then from here, you felt you would have leaned forwards to get that hook. So now lean your head back again. Open your chest and try and twist the ribs more. And take your top shoulder and rotate it up towards the ceiling. As much as possible, draw your hands down towards the center of the chest, which means your top elbow isn't pointing up like this. It kind of comes down towards the waist. Beautiful. Arms up. Release. Downward facing dog. We'll do that on the other side. Stepping forwards into low lunge, lower the back knee down. Inhale, both arms up. Bring hands to the center of the chest. While you're upright, twist first because it helps you to get a deeper twist. Then lean forwards. Maybe you're just hooking the elbow, or maybe you want to snuggle your shoulder right up against that outer thigh. Bring hands to the center of your chest. Lean your head back. Draw your hands down, and your elbows won't be up like this. You're going to try and bring your elbows down towards the waist, especially that top elbow comes down. As you lean the head back, it helps you to twist deeper. And make sure you've still got your lunge with your knee stacked over your ankle. It helps to keep the hook. Beautiful. Arms up. And gently release down dog. Take a breather here. I know these twists are quite intense. Let's do it in a high lunge now. So stepping the right foot forwards for high lunge. Both arms sweep up. Hands to the center of your chest. Twist towards the right. Hook your left elbow on your outer right thigh. Either just hooking elbow and leaning back and twisting, Or if you want a little bit more of an intense pose, you can snuggle your shoulder down, which is quite a lot more compact. So you almost be lying your chest on your thigh. Back leg is still straight. On the ball of the back foot, lean your head back and twist. So this is a modified version of side angle revolve poses you'll see in your manual. We're just going to do it like this so there's no confusion. You can open your arms out here. It's tough though. So most of us will keep hands in prayer. There's even an option to extend your top arm overhead. So this is more like your twisted revolve side angle, but it's an advanced version. So hands in prayer is perfect. Okay, back to down dog when you're ready. Other side. Left foot steps forwards for high lunge. So as you enter this pose, you could even do it low lunge twisted and then tuck your back toe and move into high lunge twisted. A lot of the time people find that easier. So you can just check in with that. Both is fine, either from low lunge twisted or coming from arms up and then moving into the pose. Handstand in prayer, lean your head back. Option to open arms, but it's tough. We'll just keep hands in prayer for today. Good. When you're ready, you can release and back to downward dog. So those are your 3 twisting poses that will be in your assessment. Revolved chair, revolved side angle. We're doing it on the ball of the back foot. So just to make sure there's no confusion, in the manual there's a girl in the picture and she's on the heel of her back foot. Just know we'll be doing it on the ball of the back foot, just in case you get confused. So twisted low lunge, twisted high lunge, twisted chair is all you have to worry about. Okay, any questions on those?
I can't find the page on the manual.
Okay, so it's from page 69 are the twists. I'm just teaching you the most important ones. I'll show you the revolved triangle now, even though it's not in your assessment. Then on page 71, you'll see Parivrita Parvakonasana. That's your twisted high lunge. And you can make notes on the ball of the back foot there. And then you will see on page 72 is your revolved chair pose, which we've covered. And then the last twist there is revolved half moon pose, which I'm going to teach you in tomorrow's class in the twists. It's tough. It's not in your assessment, but I'm going to teach it to you tomorrow. Twisted low lunge isn't in the manual, but pretty straightforward as we've just covered it now, okay? Okie dokie. Any other questions? Practice those ones. Focus on getting a good hook, leaning the head back, and twisting. Twists are tough. You can feel you're probably feeling a bit hot and sweaty now. Maybe that's just me. They work you quite strongly. As you'll feel in the class tomorrow, we'll implement all these twists.
Laura?
Yes.
Sorry. So I find these kind of twists quite challenging, even though I think I'm generally quite flexible and like lying down twist things that are more about the legs I find easier. Yes. But I'm just wondering if it might be related to the fact that I have extremely tight shoulders. So yeah, I don't know if I'm just wondering if that's maybe a reason for it.
So absolutely, these standing twists are a lot stronger because you're required to use quite a lot of strength Tight shoulders definitely will be a factor. And because you're rotating, especially a lot in your thoracic spine, around your shoulders and your ribs and your upper back, they're good to mobilize these areas, but it is totally working them strongly. So that's completely normal. The more you kind of work with them, they might just get easier over time, but also just find a point where you can get your best pose. So maybe that means just hooking your your elbow on your outer thigh and not going too deep. You know what I mean? The further you bring your shoulder towards that knee, the harder it is in your shoulders. So be a little bit more upright. As I say, to make any pose easier, reduce the range a little bit. Be a little bit more upright, and that'll help you to twist more. Then being super low to the ground is only going to make it harder.
Yeah, I always just worry when, like, with poses like these that I find difficult in that way. My worry is always that I'm doing something wrong, or maybe like damaging something, more than like, am I doing the perfect pose?
Yeah.
So, like, is there anything, like, I often feel like in these poses, my body, because I'm struggling to do the thing, something else might be doing something wrong to compensate for that. I'm not sure what, but is there anything that you can do in these poses to prevent you from, like, maybe mildly injuring something?
So I think the best thing overall is to never force. Okay. And especially in twists, there's that tendency, because you've got a hook, you've got a lever to kind of wrench against. So don't force yourself in twists. Feel a gentle hook, lengthen your spine, which is also great to create space and keeps it safer too. And then just twist and just find a sense of stability, strength around the pose, rather than forcing. As soon as you've got a lever and you force, that's the only risk involved. So just don't force anything and you should be good. And I will check in again with you on Tuesday. We're going to do a huge recap on all this stuff, and I will tell you exactly what you're doing. But just go slowly with it if you're not sure until then.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Okie dokie. So lastly today, I'm going to show you the revolve triangle. It's not in your assessment, but it is a cool pose. It's also a really hard pose. So not one you have to worry about now, but I will just cover it for future for yourselves. And we're going to do it in the class this morning, tomorrow morning, so you can get an experience of the pose. So revolve triangle, if you're following your manual, it is on page 69. Not in your assessment, so don't worry about it. Okay. Again, another one that's awesome with blocks. So in this pose, you can either step back into revolve triangle, so it's exactly like pyramid pose legs, or how I actually like to do it is from like a high lunge and pyramid on the ball of the back foot, then I twist. Because the legs are wider apart, it actually makes it a lot easier. So your back heel can be grounded or on the ball of the foot, which tends to actually work easier. Okay, my hand is underneath the shoulder if I'm using a block. I'm going to let my hips turn with me. So this right hip comes back and my left hip comes a little further forwards. And then I lean back and open in my revolved triangle pose. If you don't have a block, you can be with your fingertips on the floor, underneath the shoulder. And when your hand is under the shoulder like this, it gives you more space to lean back. The advanced version of this pose is with your hand on the outside of your right ankle. And that makes it a little bit harder, but that would be your classical pose. Okay. We will do it tomorrow morning, so you'll feel a nice warmed, after you're nice and warmed up, you'll feel that pose tomorrow morning. Okay, so those are all your twisting poses. Okay, happy with that? We have a little bit of time, so I'm going to actually start on your standing forward bends. Let me just find your page. We do most of them in the class, and we've actually done most of them. So if you're following, we're on page 106, and we're going to do our wide-legged standing forward fold. So it's called Prasarita Padottanasana. We did it today in the class. So in this pose, again, you could start in plank, down dog, and step 1 foot forwards. We did it today from goddess, and then we turned our toes to face forwards, which is also a nice way to come into this pose. Hands can start on the hips. Your feet point forward so that they're parallel to one another, or even you can have your toes turned slightly in. This is quite an intense position for our feet to be in. So a lot of you might find a very strong stretch in your outer ankles. That's normal initially with this pose, and it usually goes away over time. So adjust with your feet parallel or slightly turned in. I like them parallel these days. Hands to hips, we lift the chest, and then we're going to come slowly down into our forward fold. Okay. In the class today, we had hands underneath shoulders, and if you feel like your hamstrings and inner thighs are very tight in this pose, this is as far as you can come, and that's perfect. And you can just stay here if this is enough. The next version, like you'll be doing in your assessment, is we walk the hands in line with the feet. So I'm going to take my wrists, the heels of my hands, in line with my heels, so quite far back. And then bending the elbows, so my arms are like chaturanga arms. They're not out to the sides. My elbows are squeezing in, and maybe you bring your head towards or onto the floor. Okay, we don't want elbows out, we want elbows in, and from the side, slip. From the side, those elbows are bent at a 90-degree angle so that your wrist is below your elbow and your elbow is in line with your shoulder. That's what we're trying to get, of course, within reason and if hamstrings and inner thighs cooperate. Then we'll come back up. Next version is with fingers interlaced behind your back, arms straight, and we forward fold and just relax the head. It's harder now because your hands aren't on the floor, so you may not go as low. And then slowly we come up. And last version is reverse prayer. Okay, this is very strong on your wrists and your hands. So your options are here. Maybe you bring hands to pray and reverse, and then you squeeze your shoulder blades together. It's really hard. Or you bring fists together if that's better for your wrists, or you hold your elbows. Both are fine. All of those versions are fine. So whether you're holding elbows and forward folding, or fists are squeezing together, or your reverse prayer, which is the hardest and might be quite sore on your wrist, so be careful of that. Whatever version you're in, you don't want your shoulders rolling forwards. Open the shoulders, open the elbows, and that's your wide-legged standing forward fold. Okay, so let's give this one a go. You can come from plank down dog, or just step your legs wide, or even come from your goddess pose. Meet me with your legs wide out to the sides. Toes are pointing forwards. Hands on hips, chest lifted. So maybe your feet are parallel or toes are turned slightly in. Whatever feels best for your ankles and feet. It can be a little bit awkward. Inhale and lift your chest. And then slowly come forwards, nice and slow. So we're building that strength and mobility in our hamstrings. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders to start, like you're doing a halfway lift. If this is enough for you, this is as far as you go. And that's perfect. If your hamstrings are willing and you want to go a little further, walk your wrists in line with your heels. You have to walk quite far back, as much as possible. Bend your elbows like chaturanga arms. So elbows are in and release your head towards the floor. Doesn't have to touch the floor. Good. Squeeze your elbows in. Try and create that 90-degree angle of wrists underneath elbows and upper arms parallel to the floor. And then we'll come back up. Walk your hands forwards. Gently come back up to standing. Next version, interlace your fingers. Straighten arms. Open your chest. And then slowly forward fold from the hips. Taking the arms up and releasing the head down. If your head doesn't go all the way down, you can also keep your chest parallel to the floor like this. So you don't have to go all the way down. Try and keep your back as straight and long as possible and no excessive rounding in the spine. Slowly we come back up. Okay, now your options are fists or holding elbows, or the hardest one, don't do it if you have sore wrist, reversed prayer. Whatever version you're in, open your chest and take your elbows back. Slow forward fold, keeping your chest lifted. You can stop it halfway if that's enough, or continue all the way down, keeping your chest open, elbows up, chest stays open. Good, head towards the floor, but don't force it down. Elbows up, chest open. Slowly come back up to standing. Release your arms and step feet together or windmill back to plank down dog. So that's our standing wide-legged pose. Whew. Okay. So we're just touching on the standing forward folds today. I will finish them tomorrow, so we'll do the rest of them tomorrow morning. Any questions on the poses we've done? So Nicola, you have a question?
So Laura, so when you're doing the fists behind your back,
yes,
in that particular pose, some teachers go like that.
I'm just finding you. Give me a second. Nicola. There you are. Yes, some teachers go like, yes.
So when you do this one behind with the hands like that,
with the fingers interlaced.
Yeah, fingers interlaced. Some teachers want you to keep your palms together, and others.
Yes.
Is there any advice on that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So when you're in that pose, what we want is to try and bring the palms together and heels of the hands to touch. It is harder though. So when you do that, you actually get more. So if my hands are apart, my shoulders have less stretch. Then when I squeeze my fists together, it's actually stronger for the shoulders. Okay.
But if you're doing it that way, it's fine.
Both are absolutely fine. If you want a little more, you can squeeze your wrists towards one another, but you will feel it more in the pecs and shoulder blades coming together a little bit more.
Thank you.
Olga, do you have a question?
Hi, yes. So when your back starts to round, do you rather stop? Okay.
Yes. So ideally, in these forward bends and in all forward bends in general, we don't want excessive rounding in the back. Okay. So we don't want to be in the pose and then we're like really rounding and struggling. So what's best is to try and keep your back straight for as long as possible. So you're doing most of the work by folding here in your hips. Of course, in the end, when your head goes down, you will round a little bit. So a little bit of rounding is totally cool. It's normal, especially when the head goes down. But we don't want excessive rounding. So best to try and keep your back straight as much as possible. And for you, you seem quite flexible, so it's probably fine.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a rounding in my back when I get very low. So yeah,
When you're very low and your head is just about on the floor, it will be a little bit rounded, and that is totally cool.
Okay.
The concern is more like if your hamstrings were really tight and you're like forcing in those forward folds, that's when we say rather come up higher and keep your back straight. But if your head's already on the floor, you will get a little rounding, and that's totally cool.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Any last questions? All right, we good. Well done, everyone. I will see you tomorrow for a twisting class. And then we'll continue to go through our standing forward folds, and we'll move into some seated poses tomorrow. Please recap everything we've done today, because we did quite a lot. So it's probably information overload. So just go through it slowly. And if there's any questions, please ask tomorrow. I know one of you had a question about Skandasana, so please hold on. The rest of you can leave if you want. Thanks, guys. Bye. Otherwise, I'm here. Who was it that asked about Skandasana?
It was me.